What's going on, everybody? Today on Discover the Meeple, we're going to be learning how to play Land in Freedom, designed by Alex Knight, published by Blue Panther LLC. This is a semi-cooperative game for 1 to 3 players about the Spanish Revolution and Civil War, where each player will take on a different faction looking to push their own agendas, while the collective fights off the fascists from taking control. If the group is able to survive after 3 years, whoever has the highest glory wins the game. So let's go ahead and go over setup. You're going to, if you notice, there are 4 different fronts. You have the Northern, Aragon, Madrid, and Southern. And there are 2 tokens, 2 fascist tokens on each side. So each front starts at -2 strength. And that's going to be important as the game progresses, because if a front ever goes down to -10, that front loses, and then there are repercussions for that, which we'll get into. Additionally, you have the current year deck. So each year there is a deck associated with the year. And so we have the year 1 deck to start, and there are 2 additional ones for year 2 and year 3. You have the different standees on each track. You have the Liberty and Collectivization tracks. They both start at 5. Government starts at 6. And Soviet support and foreign aid start at 3. You have down here, you have the 5 different medallions. You're going to randomly draw those. You can use the provided bag in the game, and then lay those out face up. You notice here there's a morale bonus and a teamwork bonus. Both of those start face up. The moderates start with initiative, and the first year is clockwise. So initiative is a main way of gaining glory, so it's going to be important for each faction to gain. And this game does a really good job of kind of laying out stuff. So there's going to be an opportunity for 4 events each year. Notice here there's the little glory track. So if the group is able to survive after 3 years and push out the fascists enough, whoever has the highest glory will win. So how do you win and lose? So as I had mentioned, it's a little bit of a tug of war, but if two different fronts ever get to -10, they all start at -2. If 2 ever get to -10, the game immediately ends and everybody loses. If Madrid ever gets to -10, then the game ends and everybody loses. Or after 3 years, if any 2 fronts are at 0 or worse, then the game ends and everybody loses. The way there's an opportunity for people to win is if after 3 years, the group has been able to fight off the fascists, and there are 3 different fronts that are +1 or higher. And then whoever has the highest glory will be the winner. So it's definitely a game where you don't want to push too far ahead, because then people are going to realize that you are going to be the likely winner, and maybe they have less interest in making sure that the game goes throughout the 3 years. So there's definitely a little bit of push and pull, a little bit of negotiation, which adds to the game. It's something I really like. Now I think it's a good opportunity to go and go over the player mat, so you can see the flow of the game. So you see with the player mat, there's a spot for a draw deck, discard, the hand, where each player will start with 5 cards at the beginning of the game. Place for your tableau. You have the turn sequence. There are 5 steps in each turn. You're going to resolve the effects of the fascist card. Each player will have a chance to take their turn, resolve the fascist test. Initiative player adds to the bag of glory. As you know, it's going to be important for players to gain initiative, which we'll go over how they do that. And then you're going to remove player tokens from fronts. You have the end of the year steps. You have the different symbols on the attack on fronts. The other symbols that you're going to get throughout the game and what each medallion means. So, as I mentioned, each player is going to get 18 cards, and if you look at the front of them, they have different symbols here. So this right here, they have 3 different levels of strength right here. Either a 1, you see there's a 1 here, a 2, or a 3. You have the different effects here that can come into play if the morale bonus is active. And then also you have the different event text in here. So when you're playing a card on your turn, you can either play it for its action points and potentially these bonus things if the morale bonus is active, or you can play it for its event and go ahead and carry that out. So what do all these symbols mean on the tracks? So you see that there are 4 different morale icons here. If any of these ever get down to 0, then the morale bonus would be flipped over. And then there are different other items on here that if the track either goes down to that level or goes up, different benefits are gained. So if Liberty ever goes down to 3, then the Soviet support would go up 1. And then you would go ahead and put one of these pieces on here so that cannot be used again unless some card allows it to. If the collectivization track ever goes down to 3, it has a symbol with arrows for foreign aid, so foreign aid would move up. These symbols represent if, like, in order to gain initiative, for the anarchists, they need to be at 6. If collectivization goes up to here, then you could add the anarchist player could add a strength token to a front of their choice. What this means is in order for Liberty to go past the 7 here, and you see there's like a little line, collectivization needs to be 8 or higher. So if collectivization is there, Liberty is able to go past here. Until collectivization is at 8, Liberty cannot pass 7. So if certain game effects say for Liberty to move up and collectivization's not up at 8, then Liberty has to stay where it is. If something happens where Liberty is already at a high level and collectivization drops below 8, then Liberty can no longer advance further until collectivization maintains and it gets to 8 or higher. It can go lower then, and then it can't pass the threshold again until collectivization goes up to 8 or higher. As I mentioned, when you land on one of these tokens, you place one of these, and you won't be able to use that until a card effect says otherwise. With the government, the moderate player cannot ever have this increase to 8 until foreign aid is 8 or higher. So the highest it could go is 7. Similarly, with the communists, government can never go below 4 until Soviet support is 8 or higher. So for a lot of it, until these really expand, it's going to teeter between 4 and 7. Each faction really has 2 tracks that they care for. So with the anarchist player, they care about
liberty and collectivization. For the moderate player, they care about government and foreign aid, and for the communist player, they care about Soviet support and government. If any of the applicable tracks ever go up to 10, then in this case, the moderates would gain a medallion. In this case, the communist player would gain a medallion, and then depending on which government side it was at the max, that player would get it, and then the anarchist player would get it if either one of those tracks go up to 10. If notice here there are certain spots. So if foreign aid gets to 7, you would add a strength token to the board, and then we'll get into this, but you would also add one of your player tokens to that front. And then if certain game effects happened, that player could gain hero points, whoever's track it belonged to. All right, so the first step of each turn is you're going to reveal the fascist card and carry out the effects on here. So this is 1D. So what that means is whatever front is closest to defeat, you're going to go ahead and add one fascist token to that. Each of them start at -2. So in this case, the player with initiative gets to choose where it's going to go. So I think they will just go ahead and add one additional strength to Southern, or one attack to Southern. And then it has a symbol for an M and 4. So that means there are going to be 4 additional attacks on Madrid. So now Madrid is up to -6. And if it ever gets to -10, as a reminder, everybody will lose and the game will end. And then this last thing here, it has the Soviet symbol with 2 down arrows. So now Soviet support is actually going to drop down 2. And now South will gain another fascist token. So now South is having a little bit of trouble. You're going to see on the card here, it has the tests that each player will be trying to help a lot of times, and then the different game effects if those occur. So in this case, if at the end of all the players' turns, the Madrid front is -1 or better, right now it's -6, then the moderate player will go ahead and be able to draw an additional card. If Madrid is -2 or worse at the end of this, then the government will go one step closer to the middle. Right now, it's on the borderline between 6 and 5 and moderates and fascists. So going to the middle, it would jump over to the other side if we failed. So you can see that some of the card effects benefit a certain player, but you can't ignore this either, because if everybody ignored Madrid and it got to -10, everybody would lose, so everybody would not have opportunity. So it's something definitely you got to keep in mind as you're playing the game. So next we'll go to player turns. All right, so let's go ahead and carry out a player turn. First thing each player is going to do is they're going to take one of their cards from their hand and go ahead and place that face down in front of them. Once each player has done that, the player with initiative is going to go ahead and reveal their card. So you can see on here, it has a 2. Cards can range from 1 to 3. There's 1 3 card, there's 5 2 strength cards, and then 12 1 strength cards. The strength on here can be used as action points. And then if the morale bonus is active, which it currently is, then you would also be able to carry out one of these morale bonus icons. And additionally being amplified by any cards with the same symbol on your tableau. Being the first card, there wouldn't be any in your tableau, but if you play these for the action points, after you've played the card, it would go in your tableau and contribute to player hands. So it kind of builds up your force there. You can also play it for its event, and you would carry out the sequence of things from top to bottom. So in this case, it says front closest to feet +3. So because Madrid is getting beat up a little bit and our current event wants us to get to -1 or better, the moderates are going to go ahead and add 3 strength to Madrid. Because there's a -6 there, instead of adding strength tokens, they're actually going to remove 3 fascist tokens. So now it only has 3 there for -3. And they're also going to place a player token there to show that they've contributed to this test, which can have certain game effects. But next thing, if foreign aid is 8 or better, currently it's at 3. Government +2, if not +1. So because it's at 3, government is just going to shift 1 up. And then, as mentioned, there's a little trigger here, so foreign aid will jump up 1, and you'll place one of these tokens here so that if the track ever goes there at some other point in the game, unless that token's removed, it wouldn't carry out that effect. And then for the last thing, you would draw a card. So moderates will be able to draw another card. And then, since they played it for the event, the card would go in the box. As I mentioned, if they played it for the action pawns, then they would put it in their tableau. All right, it's now the anarchist's turn. Play, as mentioned, goes clockwise. So anarchists are up next, and they have this card, and they're going to play it for its action points. So there's 2. They could use these action points to affect one different item here. They could use it to affect any one front. So they couldn't split it up between Madrid and Southern. They'd have to just pick one. They could move up or down any of the tracks here, 2. Again, just being one track. Or they could affect the bonuses. So if the bonuses were non-active, currently they are active, they could flip them over to be active, and 1 per each action point. And there's 2 here, so they'd be able to affect both. So, but for this example, they're going to go ahead and use the 2 action points to affect the Madrid front. So you see there's still a -3 strength here. So they're going to take the 2 off because of the 2 on their card. They're going to go ahead and add their token to Madrid, showing that they participated in this. And then because the teamwork bonus is active, they also get another +1 to their strength. So an additional fascist token is removed. And now they have an opportunity to play one of these symbols that are on the current card, and they will choose this one. So what we're going to end up doing is adding +1 strength to Madrid, and whenever Madrid or any other front is at +1, whatever player that added it to make it +1 or higher will gain a hero point.
So if they shifted it from 0 to 1 or higher, they get a hero point. If some other player later, and it's right now it's at 1, if some other player made it +3, they wouldn't get a hero point. It's only when you shift it from negative or 0 to positive. And then they would place their card in their tableau where they would be able to have an opportunity for stronger actions in the later turns. If in a later turn, the player that has cards in their tableau played the card for action points again, if the card had either of those symbols on it, they could play that card that they're playing, activate one of those symbols if the morale bonus is up, and then also get the additional bonus. So for every symbol that's in their cards in their tableau. So if the next card had that symbol on it and the morale bonus was up, they could activate it from the card that they just played, and then that would get the +1, and then this would give them another +1 to 1 front. So we went over one way that hero points can be gained. Another way is if any front gets +10 or higher, then you would have a victory on the front, and each player that contributed that turn would gain 3 hero points. And then the other way is if the fascist test resolves in the team's favor, then everybody that contributed would get 2 hero points. Hero points, as I mentioned, can be used for currency in this game, and they can be spent during a player's turn to gain additional bonuses. They can spend 1 hero point to draw a card, so be able to draw an additional card. They can spend 2 hero points to turn on a bonus. So if either of these are inactive, they could flip it over by spending 2. The different tracks, you see there's amount of hero points on each of these. So to affect the Soviet or foreign aid track, you could spend 2. To affect the government track, you could spend 4. And then for liberty or collectivization, you spend 3. Still honoring those different rules about tracks needing to be up a certain amount, like foreign aid being at 8 in order to move government to 8 or above. Some medallions may also require players to spend hero points to activate. Hero points can be lost either by fascist cards or stolen by other players, and then if there are no hero points available, they're not distributed, or if they're not enough for all the players, they're distributed in initiative order. So let's go ahead and go over what a victory on the front looks like. So as I mentioned, if 10 plus tokens are ever in one front, then you would go ahead and carry out the victory on the front card. So everybody that contributed to it would get +3 hero points. Any fascist card attacking the victorious front instead attacks the initiative players twice up front. So you notice here, this card had a 4 Madrid. If Madrid had got to +10, you would place the victory on the front card here, and then the initiative player would choose where those 4 attacks go to. So it could definitely be something nice to have later in the game, especially for the initiative player. And then it says any player cards that strengthen the victorious front can now be applied to the front of the player's choice. So if they had something that said +2 Madrid, like I think moderates, oh no, that was for closest to defeat. So, but if something said +2 Madrid, they could choose whatever one that they wanted to. And then if there is a defeat on a front, and that would be a -10. So if Southern would gain 6 more negative tokens, then you would place a defeat on a front card on there. The morale bonus would turn off, and the Liberty, Soviet support, and foreign aid tracks would all move down 1. Any fascist cards attacking the defeated front instead attacks the front closest to defeat. So it's kind of keeping pressure on the players to resolve the defeat, the one closest defeat areas. And then any player cards strengthen a defeated front must now be applied to the remaining front closest to defeat. All right, so let's go through a non-player turn. At setup, just check to make sure that you've removed certain cards based on the non-players that are in the game. The first thing you're going to do on the turn for non-player is going to draw a card from their deck, and then there are certain rules when adding cards, carrying out the front from the cards. If Madrid is ever at -5, you would add strength to that front. Right now it's at +1, but then the next rule is whatever front is being tested would affect. So in this case, the card says add front +1, so they would add a strength counter to Madrid. They get an opportunity to place their token there to show that they participated. They would not gain a hero point because it was already at +1, but they do get the teamwork bonus because they participated in a spot that other players had participated in. So if the second or third player plays in the same spot, a teamwork bonus is added. Next thing you have on the card, it says Liberty and Collectivization. Go down -2. So Liberty would go down 2, which would increase the Soviet support by 1. And Collectivization would go down 2, which would increase foreign aid by 1. When moving foreign aid up, Liberty goes down. Collectivization goes down an additional 1. So you can see that the tracks definitely have effects on other players. And then for the last part of the card, you would gain a hero point. So now the non-player has 3. When adding strength to fronts, if it's not possible to add it to Madrid or the one being tested, then you would add it to the front closest to defeat, which would be Southern in this case. And if it's tied, it goes to Madrid. And then if that's not available, then it would go to the one that has the front that has the faction flag, in this case, Southern. And then it's still, if they're not able to, it's the front closest to Madrid, either clockwise or counter, whichever the direction of play. So in this case, if Southern wasn't available because it was either their victory or defeat, then it would go in this first year to Northern. If they have to decide between moving, affecting Liberty or Collectivization tracks, whatever one is the highest. So in this case, Liberty's at 3. If they had a choice between Liberty or Collectivization, Liberty's at 3, so they would affect that one because Collectivization's at 2. Then they have an opportunity to spend, front bonus. So based on those rules of the strength, they would go ahead and add +1 to a front. So they would go ahead and add another one to Madrid. So Madrid's looking pretty good right now.
And then you would, and so the other things here, it has little notes here. So if something told them to draw cards, you'd instead gain an equal number of hero points. So if it said draw 2 cards, you gain 2 hero points. Add to or swap with the tableau, instead gain a hero point. Return a card from the trash. So that's by playing a card event for its event, it usually would go away. But for the non-player, they would just go ahead and gain 2 hero points. If it says remove a blank token from a track, instead gain 3 hero points. So as I had mentioned, there's ways of removing tokens from track. That would be the way, and then they would gain 3 hero points. And then if they're told to turn on a bonus, the teamwork bonus is the first choice. So if both of these were inactive, they would choose teamwork first. And then they would, if they need to take hero points from players, they choose the faction with the most hero points. If there's a tie, choose the one with the initiative. And then if the non-player has initiative, it would be whoever is last in turn order. So after they've carried out the event and the front bonus, now they can have any effects on medallions. So remember, medallions happen if, in this case with Soviets, communists, if this track would ever go up to 10, they'd be able to choose one of these medallions, or the government ever goes down to 1, they'd be able to use one of those medallions, and then there's some steps on carrying out those medallions. For the purposes of this demonstration, I won't go specifically into them, but there is some detailed instructions on what to do. And then you would spend hero points. So in order to spend hero points, they would, if they would go ahead, their priority would be moving government first for the communists' sake. So they would need to have 4 hero points. Right now they only have 3, so they could not affect that. But let's see if there's anything else here. So it says if communists have initiative, the priority is Soviet support. So they don't have initiative here. Unless Soviet support is at least at 8 and the medallion on space 10 is covered by a blank token. So they don't have initiative. So the next thing it would try to do, if the communists control the government but do not have initiative, the priority is to reduce either liberty or collectivization, because as I mentioned before, if both these tracks are 6 or higher, then anarchists have control. So the communists would want to gain control back, and they would have to move one of those down and have government control in order to gain initiative. And then and then to affect those 2 tracks, they would have to spend 3 hero points here. To affect governments, 4. Soviet would be 2. In all their cases, priority is government. So fortunately for them, they only have 3 hero points, so they could not move the government track down 1. All right, so let's go ahead and resolve the fascist test. So the Madrid front is -1 or better. It is at +4, so it is that. So each player that contributed to it would get 2 hero points. If it had failed, as I mentioned, the government would shift closest to the middle, but it didn't, so we're good. And then initiative player adds one of their tokens to the back of glory. So right now, moderates maintained initiative, so they would add one of their tokens to here. And then they would remove player tokens from the fronts. So all these would be removed. And we would go ahead and draw another event. And then remembering that at the end of each turn, whoever has initiative gets to add one of their tokens to the bag. And then when this is full, they will add one of their initiative tokens to the bag because the end of the turn. And then at the end of the year, being that there's 4 played, they will add an additional token. And then you'll go ahead and score a glory. So what you do there is you're going to tokens. So in this case, let's say the moderates was able to maintain it throughout the whole time. So they would have added 1 for each event. Oh, sorry, 1 for each turn, and then 1 additional one for the end of year. And then you would draw 1 from the bag. And surprise, surprise, moderates get it. You place that there. And then, as I mentioned, at the end of the game, whoever has the most tokens here, if we've successfully fought off the fascists, would win the game. So right now, there might be some opportunity for the anarchists to talk with moderates and say, hey, like, if you want me to really try to allow an opportunity for us to win, I'm gonna need to make sure you're not moving down the liberty and collectivization tracks, because I want to be able to add some tokens to the bag. So factions that did not score will gain hero points. So in the first year, each faction that didn't score would get 1 hero point. And then if a faction didn't score in year 2, they would gain 2 hero points. In year 2, you notice there are 2 spots for glory tokens, so you would draw 2 tokens from the bag. And then you're going to discard cards from your hands and tableau, and then keep cards up to the current year. So at the end of the first year, you would keep 1 card from your hand and 1 card from your tableau, up to, and then at the end of year 2, you could keep up to 2 cards from your hand and 2 cards from your tableau. So it allows you to have a little something for the next year, which could be nice. Then you're going to draw back up to 5 cards, and then the last thing you do is you flip initiative. So now initiative for year 2 would be going counterclockwise. And then you carry out the next sequence of turns, removing the year 1 cards from the board, adding year 2, and then carrying out additional 4 events for year 2, etc. You notice here there is a final bid there. So how that works is during year 3, during the last turn, players have an opportunity to play 3 cards from their hand as a bid, and then whoever has the highest bid gets to place one of their tokens right there on that year 3 spot. Those cards would be going to their discard pile, so they won't be able to play them that final turn. But it's a nice way of gaining a token on the board there without having to draw from the bag. And then they'd carry out the last turn playing a card from their hand. If the war was successful, meaning that there were at least 3 fronts with +1. Right now, there's only 1 front that's +1. But if there were 3, then you would draw the remaining 5 tokens from the bag, and then whoever had the most would win. If there was a tie, it would go to the player with initiative. All right, so let's go ahead and go over the different symbols on here, a little bit more detail. So That shows the success on a fascist test. You see those on the different events. Move government away from the center. So right now, government is at 7. That would mean it's going further in the direction that it's going. The momentum's taking it. But that can only occur if, in this, like right now, it's at 7, so it can't cross the 8 line until foreign aid is up at 8, and that's shown on the board. So this represents hero points. If this symbol comes up, it's the player with most hero points. This allows you to claim a medallion. So if the track goes up to 10 in your direction, +1 to a front, -1 to a front, a teamwork bonus on, teamwork bonus off, morale bonus on, morale bonus off, increase or decrease, and then you count the amount of arrows on there. There is one-time bonuses. So the subterfuge allows you to add 1 player token to the Bag of Glory. This allows you to gain 7 hero points, which can be nice. Allows you to play another card. And then permanent upgrades. Add 1 strength when supporting a front, once per turn. Gain 2 extra hero points from each successful test, even if you did not support. +1 card when drawing from your deck, and keep +1 card in your hand at the end of the year. Can be nice. And then other ways of spending hero points. So you can convert any number of hero points into strength added to any fronts. That can be really nice. And spend 1 hero point to remove a blank marker from a track once per turn. And then spend 1 hero point to double a track icon on a current card. Morale bonus +1 once per turn. So it's a reminder that the morale bonus needs to be up, but if, as I mentioned, if you played it for its action points, you'd be able to activate one of these. So if they chose this one, they would be able to add 1 strength to a front, and then add an additional 1 based on that medallion. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Cheers.